Welcome to our episode of Biblical Archaeology from the Ground Down. Presented by Bible Interact and hosted by Dr. George Sparks. Join us as we explore the fascinating world of the Bible from leading experts in the field of archaeology.
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. David Graves, an experienced biblical archaeologist and CEO of Electronic Christian Media. I'm here today with another exciting episode on our Archaeology Discoveries channel, where we discuss important archaeological artifacts related to the Bible. Thanks for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe to our channel.
Well, welcome people. My name is Dr. George Sparks, and this is Biblical Archaeology from the Ground Down, sponsored by Bible Interact. I have a very cool program for you today. I have two guest archaeologists, Dr. David Graves and Miss Esther Lovato. What we're going to discuss today, I don't think has ever been discussed on YouTube before, and it's the locations where Herod plotted the execution of Jesus of Nazareth and also John the Baptist. All right, and this is what our guests are going to talk about today in the two separate locations where this could have happened, because we have to speculate a little bit, but there is good plausibility. Now I'm going to give some background here on these two individuals. Dr. David Graves received his PhD from the University of Aberdeen in Scotland. He has been involved in teaching the Bible and archaeology for more than 35 years. He has taught at Oxford University, England, Liberty University, School of Divinity, provided tours of the Ashmolean and the British Museum, traveled extensively in the Middle East, has been involved in the Mount Ararat research. He has excavated at Qumran, the Temple Mount Shiloh in Israel, as well as Tel El Hammam in Jordan, for over 10 seasons. He has been involved in excavating the Dead Sea Scroll caves and has authored many books, as well as publications. For once, David, you're going to have to share the screen on this one. Next is Miss Esther Lovato. Esther has spent the last 14 years as an ancient Near Eastern enthusiast, historian, and archaeologist, whose main focus is on biblical history, biblical archaeology. In 2013, Esther became a square supervisor at the Tel El Hammam excavation at the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan. Esther's research has contributed to the excavation report at the Tel El Hammam excavation over several seasons. In 2020, Esther was a contributor to the research and writing of the Harvest Handbook of Bible Lands, which was a finalist in the ECPA Gold Medallion Book of the Year. The book was given very high review by Bible Archaeology Report. In 2022 and 2023, Esther was privileged to work on the restoration team at the Shiloh excavation in Israel, where she was an intern with a resident zoo archaeologist, identifying and cataloging the animal bones discovered in the excavation. Currently, Esther is a full-time master's student finishing up a degree in biblical archaeology and ancient Near Eastern history at Trinity Southwest University, and it looks like you're also going to pursue your PhD at Veritas University, which is the accredited university. So very, very good. A long haul for that PhD, is it not? But I can appreciate that.
And George, Esther and I had the privilege of working together at both Tel El Hammam and I worked at Shiloh different a year than she did, but we're good friends and worked together for many seasons at Tel El Hammam.
That's correct. Actually, we all had our little moments at Tel El Hammam. Mine was like 2 weeks, and David was my square supervisor, but that was without the beard.
That's right. So we go all way back. So it's been good.
That is way back. So this is our game plan for today, folks. Dr. Graves is going to start off. He's going to talk about Herod Antipas and who this individual is. Esther is going to come up next, and she's going to speak about her location where John the Baptist was beheaded. It records that in the New Testament. And then after that, Dr. Graves is going to speak about a lost city that he discovered while excavating at Tel El Hammam. And he's going to give his reasonings, his explanation where this could possibly be the location where Herod Antipas also plotted the execution of Jesus. Now, remember, in the biblical narrative, that John the Baptist was Jesus's cousin. So, in a way, this is the plot to annihilate two members of a family as well. So, David, you want to get us rolling on this, please?
So we're going to be talking about where Herod plotted the death of John the Baptist and Jesus of Nazareth, question mark. Again, it's speculation, but I think we've got some good grounds to argue this. Based a lot of the information based on my books on the archaeology of the New Testament, and they're available. Want to scan the codes there. Now, to give you an idea geographically where we're talking about two areas where Herod Antipas was controlling to the province of Galilee and also the province of Perea down here. And Herod Antipas built or rebuilt three cities in this region. Tiberias, it's up here in Galilee, right here in the Sea of Galilee. Sepphoris, right here on the red dot, up in Galilee. And while he's rebuilding Sepphoris, building and rebuilding, he's probably living down here at Livias, down at where Tel El Hammam is located. Now that's the site behind George's head. That's Tel El Hammam. And then we have Machaerus down here on the hills of Perea, just adjacent to the Dead Sea, Lake Asphaltitis. This is what it was called in antiquity. And we're going to talk a little bit about the baptismal site right here on the Jordan River, where John the Baptist is baptizing. So you can sort of see we got a triangle here of these three sites. And during this time period, Jesus is up here in Galilee performing miracles and traveling around visiting the synagogues. We talked about those in one of our previous podcasts. But that gives you a sense of the geography. And he had the privilege of governing Galilee in the north, as well as Perea, this brown area here in the south. This is modern day Jordan, the Jordanian side. So that gives you a sense of the geography. Now we know of Herod Antipas because he's mentioned in ancient sources. Herod the Tetrarch in Greek is described on three of his coins. They're characterized here, you see, with the palm tree and also a wreath on the obverse side of the coins. And in Greek, it says Herod Tetrarch, Herod the Tetrarch, these palm branches. Herod he posed as a Jewish leader, celebrating Jewish holidays, but he was not accepted by the Jews. We know this from Josephus, one of the early writers in the first century. The Gospels speak of Jesus calling Herod the fox, which was a ceremonial unclean animal. And he finally came face to face with Jesus at his trial in Jerusalem, because remember, Jesus is up in Galilee and he doesn't speak to Jesus until he comes down to Jerusalem, which is just across on the other side of the Dead Sea here. So we have Jesus, John the Baptist, coming down to the lower part, and that's where Herod encounters him. Okay, Esther, do you want to begin kind of giving us an introduction into Machaerus, because it's a fortress down in the south end of the Dead Sea. It's I don't know, maybe 15 Roman miles south of us from Tel El Hammam.
Definitely. Macaris is known as, it's known in Jordan as Macawer. It was recorded as the historical location and the fortress where John the Baptist was imprisoned and beheaded. John the Baptist, also known in that region as Yahya ibn Zachariah. Um, that's what he's known as locally in the Holy Land. And as we know, he was the cousin of Jesus. Um, well known for preaching baptism and repentance in the Jordan River, and he foretold of the coming of Jesus, the Messiah. He baptized Jesus at Bethany beyond the Jordan.
Now here's a picture of the Madaba map. Maybe you can talk about that for a moment, Esther.
Yeah, so the Madaba map is one of the oldest known maps, and located it's the Greek Orthodox Church in the Christian city of Madaba, Jordan. And so that's so one of the maps that we all take a look at, because there's interesting information there that has, it's not anywhere else that we can find. So that's a exciting thing to take a look at.
So here's what we believe to be Livias up here being pictured. I've published on that, indicating that is, and Macaris is way over here on the right side, but it's off the picture right here. The Madaba map's quite large, and it's the floor of the church, and each of the sites in Greek have the name of the place. So we know that this is Beth Abra, the place of St. John's baptizing. So this is the baptismal site on the Israeli side. And there's also a spot here that has been excavated. We'll show some photos of that in a moment here. So this is the Jordan River, where the fish are, and that's the Dead Sea here. So it's helpful for us identifying these ancient sites. So Esther, is that one of your photos?
No,
No,
that must be one of yours.
These are some photos that we have. This is on the Israeli side, what it looks like. And I think the other one might have been on the Jordanian side.
Mm-hmm.
Here we have some of the ruins, so you can talk about those.
Yeah, definitely. So it's been pretty recent that they found those ruins. Those are on the Jordan side, hence Bethany beyond the Jordan. And so it is located in the archaeological park down there near at the baptism site on the Jordan side of the river.
So here's without the water, but when it rains, it fills that area up and it looks like a swimming pool. And in reality, there's steps that go way down to a mosaic floor or paved floor down here.
Now that site is about a 10-minute walk from the actual Jordan River where the baptisms take place today. So they're not holding baptisms in the actual archaeological site.
Good point. Yes, it's true. And that is the Greek Orthodox Church that has been built there as a commemoration of the site where John the Baptist was baptizing Jesus. So there's a Jordanian side to access it, and there's an Israeli side to access it, simply because it's on the Jordan River, and the Jordan River is the boundary between the two countries even today. Okay, Esther, you want to continue talking about Macaris and John the Baptist here?
Yeah. So John had criticized Herod Antipas, the governor of Galilee and Perea, for unlawfully marrying his half-brother's wife, Herod. This made him lots of enemies, and Herod Antipas was the son of Herod the Great, and he had inherited Macaris from his father when Herod the Great died in 4 BC. Herod Antipas ruled in Galilee until 39 AD, and he's known to have imprisoned John the Baptist. The Bible says in the Gospels of Mark that Herod protected John, knowing that he was a righteous and holy man, and he liked to listen to him. And we see this in Mark 6:20.
Now it's interesting that Josephus is the one who said that that John the Baptist was beheaded at Machaerus as well. You probably will talk about that, but the Bible doesn't say that. But we know from extra biblical sources,
Yeah.
fill in the blanks and fill in some more of the information.
Yeah, that's the exciting part. I mean, we have information in the scriptures, but we also have information in extra biblical sources. That's why it's always good to look at all aspects of information, because they do tend to corroborate and fill in the blanks as we go.
So it was the birthday of the governor Herod Antipas that this took place.
Yes, Herodotus hated John for exposing their sin. She was eager to find any kind of reason to have him taken out, per se. It was a birthday of the governor Herod Antipas, and they were going to have a large banquet. It was planned. Guests were invited. All of the leaders of Galilee. This was the perfect opportunity for her to get rid of John. She had pre-planned and plotted with her daughter Salome that she would offer her daughter to dance for the governor and all of his guests at the banquet. When Salome danced her dance, she impressed Herod so much. He was enthralled with watching her. He offered her anything that she wanted, even up to half of the kingdom. So there had opened the door for her to put in her request. This is recorded in Mark 6:23. And when this happened, she jumped at that opportunity. She asked for the head of John the Baptist. After her request, Herod was deeply grieved, but he gave the order to execute John and have his head brought out on a platter after John's disciples took away his body for burial. So, he didn't want to be embarrassed in front of all of the leaders and all of his friends. And so he went and put the order through.
I've just put up here an AI generated image that sort of depicts it. This is what the AI comes up with the head of John the Baptist on a platter. So gives you an idea of how gruesome this might have been, at a banquet or something.
This is probably a good time to go through Matthew 14 and the scripture of John the Baptist beheaded. I think that's one of the most intriguing parts of going and visiting Machaerus and taking the long haul and climbing all the way up to where the ruins are. I know that the first time that I had gone out there, when I got to the top, it was just perfect timing. There was some missionaries up there that were actually reading the scripture out loud. And so it was just even that much more intense to arrive at the top and listen to what Matthew 14 has to say about that. So I'd like to do that at this time. Now Herod had arrested John and bound him and put him in prison because of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife. For John had been saying to him, "It is not lawful for you to have her." Herod wanted to kill John, but he was afraid of the people because they considered John a prophet. On Herod's birthday, the daughter of Herodias danced for the guests and pleased Herod so much that he promised with an oath to give her whatever she asked. Now, see, he gave the oath, and we know how that went in those times. You gave an oath, and that was your word. That was as much of as deep as a contract. Prompted by her mother, she said, "Give me here on a platter the head of John the Baptist." The king was distressed, but because of his oath and his dinner guests, he ordered that her request be granted and had John beheaded in the prison. His head was brought out on a platter and given to the girl, who carried it to her mother. John's disciples came and took his body and buried it. And then they went and told Jesus.
Yes. Now I've put up the ESV version of that passage. I'm not sure which one you were reading from, Esther, but that's why they're different. There's different translations. But you get an idea of what took place there. Well, there's a photograph of the path leading up to the top of Macaris. Maybe you can talk.
Yeah, they built a pathway on there, which is quite nice. It's not paved, it's kind of a gravel pathway, but it is still extremely steep, trying to get up to the top of the where the ruins are.
And as I mentioned, Josephus records the execution of John there at this site. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the cave, the fortification here.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, it was recorded by historian Josephus as taken as the event that actually took place at Macaris. The name Macaris means Black Fortress. It was one of the series of hilltop strongholds established by his father Herod the Great along the edge of the Dead Sea and the Jordan Valley. The fortress is protected by three sides, deep ravines, which gives it protection and safety at any time of political unrest. And from the fortress, Herod could actually alert Jerusalem and the other fortresses with fire signals, so you can see across, totally across the Dead Sea, and you can literally see Jerusalem from the top of Macaris. As you're going up, there are the caves on the side of the tell there, and these would have been used as prison cells. So that's pretty intense to be there and to actually see the place where allegedly, John the Baptist may actually have been held.
Yeah, I'll have a few photos of those caves in a few moments once we get through this slide here. You want to talk a little bit about Herod marrying Phaziel?
Yeah. So she was the daughter of King Artaeus of Nabatea in the kingdom whose capital was Perea in 26 AD. He visited Rome and his brother Philip and then fell madly in love with his brother's wife. When his wife, his then wife, had learned that Herod was going to divorce her to marry Herodotus, she fled back to her father and returned home to Nabatea. Her father, the king of Nabatea, attacked Herod in 36 AD and completely destroyed Herod's army. Some Jews, according to the writings of Josephus, said that it was divine retribution because Herod had executed John the Baptist. So there was a lot going on there, but a woman scorned, she's going to go and tell her father the king, and there's going to be some wrath.
Yeah.
So Herod Antipas was also one and the same as the guy who Pontius Pilate had sent Jesus to for questioning, and this is where we kind of go into the topic of this podcast. But Pontius Pilate had learned that Jesus was from Galilee. Herod Antipas was in Jerusalem at the time, and Herod had been wanting to see Jesus because he had heard of him and wanted to see Jesus perform some sort of a sign. That he questioned Jesus at length, but Jesus stayed silent. Then Herod mocked him and sent him back to Pontius Pilate.
Yeah, I think this is quite fascinating, how our archaeology and the location of Macaris and Livias or Tel el Hammam in relationship to Jerusalem, how all of this story takes place down in the southern parts around the Dead Sea and the Jordan River, while Jesus is up north doing work, performing miracles and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So this geography really helps us understand this story and what's happening in Scripture based on the geography and the archaeology that we're doing. Jesus doesn't come in contact with Herod until Jesus comes down to visit Jerusalem, and that's when these events start to take place. And the reason why Herod Antipas is not up in Galilee is because he's rebuilding his capital up there of Sepphoris. And so while he's doing that, he's relaxing down in the south, both at his fortress, but also, I believe, at Livias. And we'll talk about that in a few moments.
Well, and I mean, looking at the maps, I don't think, I mean, unless you've physically been out there, people don't realize, based on these locations, how actually close everything is. And, you know, how much smaller it is, you know, when you see it and when you walk the steps through the footsteps of being there, than it actually does on the map.
Yes, good point. So in AD 66, do you want to continue there?
Yeah, through 73 AD, Machaerus had been taken over by the Jewish rebels. This was during the first Jewish revolt. Herod Antipas had been accused of conspiracy. This was against Roman Emperor Caligula, and then he was exiled to Gaul. The Romans tricked the Jews by telling them that they would crucify their young Jewish defender if the rebels did not surrender. So when the Jewish rebels agreed to abandon Machaerus, then the Romans dismantled the Herodian fortifications. So that, you know, that brings us into the excavations of Machaerus. First recorded excavations are in 1807 by a German explorer by the name of Ulrich Jasper Seetzen. He had discovered the ruins that Josephus had described in detail, and then later French Dominican Father Felix Marie Abel explored the site in 1909. Christian pilgrims had been coming to the site for, you know, quite some time, and hundreds of years prior, during the time of all the way back to Constantine. In 1927, the American Baptist minister E. Jerry Vanderman, he conducted excavations at the site where he discovered several objects, but unfortunately, his work was never published. The next excavation took place in 1978 by a group of Franciscans from Jerusalem, and they seem to have explored a lot of the territory, you know, looking for all of these biblical sites. But they were the first to prove undoubtedly that the structure was indeed the royal palace of Herod the Great.
Esther, do you know if Vardaman's works are available?
No, I have not been able to find them.
Even a diary or something that he might have had. That's a shame. It would have been good to have located those. Somebody maybe will publish them if they're ever found. But
if they're found, maybe there's some journals or something that he had to have kept information. But you know, that's the thing. We find lost notes and things later on down the line, and hopefully we'll be able to, you know, find something along the line.
Yeah, I think it's still being excavated today, is it not? Still doing some
work? The Hungarians are still excavating it. The last information that they put out preliminary report in 2016 and 2017 of some exciting discoveries. They say that they've discovered a lost northern of the Herodian royal palace.
There's just a few photographs. If you want to kind of, these are yours, I think.
Yeah. So the area is approximately 5,000 square meters, and it was the Hungarian Academy archaeologists, along with the Jordanian Department of Antiquities, who had surveyed the area in 2009. They were able to uncover the Herodian floor of the royal courtyard, columns, several storerooms, evidence of the original citadel fortress, and they found evidence of 3 periods of occupation: Hellenistic, Herodian, and Roman eras. They began a conservation project and had involved the local community to help conserve. I know that's a big thing in Jordan. They really want to just create pride and try to involve the community as possible. But so they began to restore the site. And so that's how it is now open to the public to tour and enjoy and see the views from the top of the fortress. It's spectacular. Jerusalem and the fortress of Masada can be seen across the Dead Sea. And there's also ruins at the bottom that locals have built a village in and around. So that's kind of interesting to see, because as you drive up there and you're coming up and you see the tell there, you do see the modern Jordanian village there, and then in between there's just ruins here and there, and you just kind of want to make you explore the whole area because there's so much yet to be discovered.
Now, you can't drive up to the top of the tell, right? You just drive
No.
to the base of it.
Yes.
The
And
bus
then you
or
have to take the photograph behind you. Those are the Roman steps that take you over for quite some ways, and then you get to the path, and then that's when you can follow the path all the way over. But when I was there, I had had a chance to visit, and we had met this young gentleman. His name is Yasin. He was the caretaker of Machaerus. He and his father's family were given the opportunity by the government of Jordan to work as the designated caretakers of the site. I think that's pretty common on these ancient sites. I know that in Jerusalem with the Tomb of the Prophets, we had met the gentleman whose family had gone back a couple hundred years that were caretakers of the site. So, we paid 3 dinar, and that's about $5. And then we were able to, after some tea, of course, because you got to have tea, we were able to climb the mountain and explore where the fortress was located.
Yeah, one thing in Jordan, you have to have the obligatory tea wherever you go.
Yes.
And it's very good tea. They put usually a little mint in it, mira, and it's really a lot of sugar, and it's really tasty.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, at first glance, looking at, like I said, those big steps there, you come through a gate and it takes you through Roman steps leading down to the trail that has been built up recently to climb the top. Then as you go along, you'll pass those caves that we spoke about, and this is possibly where the prisoners were held. It's a bit overwhelming to be in the possible location where John the Baptist was imprisoned and see the quarters where he would have been kept. And then we got some pretty cool photographs. It looks like a small hill. The pictures really just don't do it justice, but it is huge. You begin this ascend up the mountain, and although the trail is steep, as you come around the bend, you get to see across the Dead Sea. On a clear day, you can see all the way to the dome at Jerusalem.
And that's the red dot or arrow there is where you can see the top of Jerusalem there, and Masada is on the other side. It's way down here. Do you know if you can see Masada? I forget now. I think you can.
Yeah, you can.
And I think you could also see the Herodium, could you not?
Yes.
Which is
yeah, so they may have done some kind of signals to be able to signal each other, from place to place.
We found a structure on the top of Tel Hammam, which would have also been used as a signaling location. So they would take these high points and be able to signal the enemy and from day to day.
Yeah.
Just a few more photos.
And when you arrive at the top, the first thing that you see up there is the royal courtyard and the pillars. They did a really good job with trying to restore and renovate their with their conservation of with using the original materials. You get a sense that you can clearly imagine Salome doing her infamous dance up there, which was the cause of the demise of John the Baptist.
Yeah, that was square courtyard.
Yeah. Courtyard.
Great.
Hey, there we are.
Yeah, we working together. I think it's a wall, but I think you think it's a cistern, and we're just having a good time.
Might have been a taboon. We had tons of taboons that year, and yeah, we were deep in thought there, trying to plot out our plan.
How you can tell an archaeologist, they're always looking at the ground.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit now about Tel El Hammam. Now that we've had an introduction, a good introduction to Macaris. This place, I believe, also ties into the story. And I'll explain a little bit why here in a moment. So here we have, as I said, up here in Galilee, Tiberias and Sepphoris again. But down here, we just visited Macaris. Now we're going to go up here to Livias. And this was Herod Antipas's capital or administrative center. And I think this is where he was living while his palace up here in the north was being rebuilt. And I can envision him moving from back and forth from Livias to Macaris and so forth. And the reason I say that is that it's pretty hot and dusty up here in Macaris. There are some mikvot. These are cleansing pools they discovered, I think, up there as well. And there's Macaris down there. But John the Baptist is right here on the Jordan Valley, the Jordan River, baptizing at the time. So he knows well what's going on. There's this triangulation here, these three sites. What's happening in the region. This is the view. It's behind George as well, another aerial. Well, actually, it's taken from Tel Habas up on the ridge, overlooking the Jordan Valley. Jericho is over here. And this is the Tel itself, Tel proper, and the lower Tel's way down here. Hammam is a word that means hot spring. And we have 5 of them at the site. We know from the ancient writings that Livias was famous for its hot springs. So that was one of the clues that got me started on trying to identify this site in the Roman period. So here's the lower spring down there and the upper spring here. There's one over here at Tel Tahuna, and there's another one way over here in the field, a place called Heshbala. When I did my research, everybody said, well, Tel El Rama is actually Livias. But I wrote on this, and our conclusion was a new theory that while Tel Rama was the commercial center of Livias, the administrative, that center was actually at Livias, or at Tel El Hammam. So there was, it was a sprawling area. This is just within walking distance from our site. I walked it myself across the fields, but it's just a small site. There's a little bit of Roman pottery around and a couple of pillars, but not much. But we found them, the large stuff. So how did I identify Tel El Hammam as Livias? Well, I used the Roman mile marker. This one's up at Mount Nebo, and it has a sign here with the inscription on the mile marker stating that it was 6 Roman miles to Roman Eusebus Livius. So what do I do? Well, I go and I start doing some research on the ancient texts. So we have Eusebius, which is 12 Roman miles west of Heshbon. We know Heshbon is Eusebus here. So you just do a circle, 12 Roman miles. You have to calculate, of course, Roman miles. And then Eusebius says it's 5 Roman miles from Nimrine. We know where that is. There's Tel Nimrine right there. And then we do, Theodosius says, writes it's 12 Roman miles from Jericho. Well, we know where Jericho is. So we go from the known to the unknown. You just draw your 3 circles, and lo and behold, it intersects with Tel El Hammam. So that's where Livias is, because the ancient writers give us the measurements. And notice where Tel Rama is, that every scholar up to this point had said was Livias.
Yeah.
It's off the mark. Here's Macaris down here, just south of the Wadi Zerkamain. And Kalaro is another hot spring, a famous hot spring here. And it's kind of interesting that Herod said he found the waters here at Hammam a little bit too cool and preferred the ones at Kalaro. So he's going back and forth. And so we know that he knew about the hot springs here at Tel El Hammam at Livias. And the Roman mile markers, the one that I used to identify the distances, was right here. And I GPS this Roman road that runs down here. And then I discovered another one out here in the field, the 8th Roman mile down here. There it is laying on the ground. We picked it up and brought it back to Tel El Hammam. It's still sitting there in the field beside the mosque. So that gives you an idea of the geography. And there's the Dead Sea. And John the Baptist, Bethany beyond the Jordan, John the Baptist is baptizing right there. And that's the 10th mile marker.
Mm.
So we have all the mile markers on the Roman road. We lose the Roman road through here a little bit. There's a modern road that comes from Amman, comes down here. And so a modern road is cutting through some of it. But I was able to trace it down to the Wadi Heshbon, at least that much of it, because the Bedouin are still using it today. It's in such impeccable shape. This is a close-up here. Now, Livias is named after Herod Antipas, named it after the wife of Augustus, who was her name was Livia. This is her marble bust here in marble.
Beautiful.
Yeah, she's quite something. And her image is actually on the arches at one of the cities mentioned in Revelation in Turkey. So at Smyrna, the city of Smyrna. So here's a sort of a close-up of the area. There's a blue mosque here, and we have the Roman buildings here, and there's a Roman building out here. So it's quite something. And there's also another Roman building up here. And you'll see also in the red, the aqueduct that I discovered. And the thermal springs here are in blue. There's one right here, 3 of them up here. There's another one down here. Tel Heshbon, or Habasa, is up here. And from here to here is an aqueduct that ran across, bringing water. This is Tel El Hammam right here in the distance. And then there's an aqueduct actually that goes across here. I just put it here to give you an idea of how an aqueduct would look like going across the little valley here, the ridge. Here's some more of the remains. There's an aqueduct coming off of Tahuna. This is Tel El Hammam here. So there's water coming from this direction. And then down here in the front, along the modern road, right along here, there's another aqueduct. We uncovered part of it here and excavated, clarified it. That's the dam behind us where water is coming and being captured today. So it's a well-watered area. I also identified an ecclesiastical structure, probably a mosque, a church from the Byzantine period. There's a beautiful chalice mosaic in the floor as well. This has been published in our article, Scott Stripling and myself, published in the re-examination for the location of the ancient city of Livias, published in 2011. I'm probably one of the only Westerners that has seen this. And today the local Muslims have put a grave site over top of it. And they've cut through the mosaic floor, putting a cemetery in here So we'll never be able to excavate there because now it's a holy site. But I was able to get a few photographs of the mosaic floor, showing that there was a church there originally, a Byzantine church. And this is only, I don't know, maybe a kilometer away from our site at Tel El.
Mhm.
Well, we found this Roman thermal bath complex. It's a huge, 35 by 40 meters. The hot spring is right here in the corner, this red dot. It's been capped today and still being used to as for irrigation of the banana plantations. These are bananas here growing and also growing down here. But they couldn't do much plowing this area because that's the wall. We found the corner of it. And then we dug along we traced the wall going from the known to the unknown. And we found the edge of the wall going this direction. And then we found the wall going through the acacia trees going that direction. Found the corner there. And then we found the corner over here. Did our math based on the measurements. X marks the spot for the fourth corner. We went over there and dug it. And sure enough, there it was. So we got the four corners of the. So over the seasons, we started digging in this area right here because we knew there was sort of some walls showing here. Here's a plot of it with all of our squares. And the red areas are the areas that we've excavated, the four corners, and then we started working in this area right here. And lo and behold, this is also some of the pottery, the Roman table amphora, used for pouring your wine. We found that here in this corner right here. There's a reconstruction of the Byzantine bathhouse. Elaine Rittmeyer, our archaeological architect, had built or had drawn for us based on our measurements and our excavations that we did. We know now the bath complex was at least 2 stories high, with some arches in here. And then we had the bath right here on the outside wall. This is the outside wall. This is the upper corner. So get an idea how much soil we have on top of our walls. So this had to all be excavated. We see the bricks, the Roman ashlars here. And here's another shot of it. All the different walls that we've exposed, and a little notched passageway here, a water channel coming here with water coming through. The metal pipe is still there. And this is the thermal bath right here. Oh, there's our famous pot, Esther.
Yes, pot.
Tell the story.
Well, Dr. Graves said these were located under the acacia trees. Isn't that correct?
That's right. Yeah, right here in this area right here.
Yeah,
almost
so
where it's situated. Yeah.
Really hard to get to and excavate because those things, they're deadly. They have pricks on them, and then they also tons of roots. But Dr. Graves had kind of hit the mother lode of pottery there, and he was just pulling out pots after pots, and so they were quite fantastic, and in whole form.
And then I pulled this one out and held it up, and Esther yells out,
"It's a boy!" he had this proud father that had just given birth to these pots, and we saw this little pot come out and scream out, "It's a boy!" But yeah, archaeologists have a strange sense of humor. We like to have fun while we're working.
We sure do. And there's probably about, I think, 12, whole vessels that came out. They're all published in our book on the pottery. But
yeah. Well, maybe the reason why they were preserved down there was because they were under the acacia trees. Nobody else could eat to them.
That's right. And I think part of that was why there was such a horde there. My theory is that the locals have been plowing, pushing with sort of a bulldozer, an earth mover, vessels up into the corner and they pushed them up underneath the acacia trees. That's why we had such a cache of these whole vessels, and had preserved them. We found a lot of pottery, of course, in the wall in this area here. But a lot of them were broken. We did find some whole pieces. A couple of whole oil lamps. This Byzantine one here was found in G area, and this one, this is an early Roman oil lamp. This was found up in the Upper Tal area. And then, of course, we have this beautiful bath right here with two benches and steps going down into the water area. Now, what's significant about this is that it's not big enough to be a communal bath. It's only enough room in here for like 2 people, maybe 4 at the most. If it was a communal bath, it would have been much larger and able to house, 20, 30 people. So this is why I believe that this building was used as a private structure, also based on the ornate construction of it and the pottery that we find here. I believe this was Herod Antipas's private bath complex. The upper area was the reservoir. You have to understand this is like half of the structure that we found the 4 corners for, so it's huge. Here's a close-up of it. You can see beautifully plastered. The walls were still plastered. The steps leading down to the water area, and there was actual drainage pipes that you could drain it. And the water, remember, comes from the hot spring that's just beside us. It's like 5 meters away from this corner. One of the beautiful oil lamps we found were these remains here with a Greek inscription. It reads, "Jesus' light shines for all." A eulogia that was manufactured up in Jerusalem. So we know it was on the Roman road leading up to across the Jordan Valley, across the Jordan River, and then up to Jerusalem. Here's the published description we have. That's the drawings and also the 2 samples of the oil lamps that we have. What was kind of cool is when you flip it over, we actually had the fingerprint of the person who made it still evident. That was really neat.
It's like time travel, because you're sitting there looking at this piece, and I think that day it was I was there when you excavated that, and we were saying, God, just give us a sign, and then this beautiful lamp is exposed with the message on it, and it's quite compelling.
Yeah, Jesus' light shines from you. Flip it over, and there you have the actual fingerprint of the guy that did it. I don't think it's in the fingerprint bank. I don't think they're able to look that one up and find who made it. Well, all of our pottery and stuff and our stories are published in the preliminary reports on the Tel El Hammam excavation project. All the pottery is depicted there. And there's the other article. It's available on Academia Edu. But I believe that Herod Antipas was staying at some points, bathing in that bath, probably while he's sitting there plotting how he's going to meet Jesus, how he's going to meet John the Baptist. And then, of course, when the request comes in for his head, he knows where John the Baptist is because he's just down the road, across the valley, baptizing right there on the Jordan River. Takes him prisoner and then takes him down to his fortress and puts him in the cave. So the geography and the archaeology all comes together, showing us how the biblical story meets perfectly the geography of the text. Anything you wanted to add, Esther?
No, I think that's I'm just compelled by this AI photo you got there. I mean, that's exactly what it would have looked like, him looking across there, and it was just great going through all of this with you. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah, well, it's been great to walk down memory lane again.
Yeah.
George, do you have any questions? Any
Yeah,
comments?
sure. Okay, make sure you can hear me, right?
Yeah,
And if we could go back to a map real quick. You got one of your maps in your PowerPoint we can go back to?
sure. Yeah, we can go right back here to
Okay.
go back here to this one here, or
No, no, no.
okay, wait.
Further
Yeah,
back
let me just,
further.
yeah, I'll go back here to
It's going to be a map that you had your show. There it is right there. That's it. That's it. And
all
I
right.
thought, okay, so let's start with Esther. You point to Marcaris Forest on your map. Is it on here?
Yep, right
There
here.
we go. There we go. Okay, and where would be John when he's baptizing? Can you point that out again for the
He would have
John's
been right.
bap
He would have been Bethany
the,
beyond the Jordan.
okay, you got Livias right there too. Yeah, so
I mean, it's
Livias,
really,
The
go
really
ahead.
close.
the
There you
baptismal
go.
site is in the green right here,
Right. Okay.
and
So it gives
Livius.
us a distance. Yeah. There's Livius. That's where Herod could have possibly hung out at the hot springs, and you're showing us the Roman baths.
Yep,
And that's also a location where, let's say, just say, possibly that Jesus would have met John and he was baptized, and John made the proclamation. And because of John's um, disagreement of who Herod should marry, he was taken and held at Marcaris, that's just further south. And you pointed out that it looked like caves, and you say that it was the caves that were used as prisons.
yes.
So when Herod, when Salome, probably influenced by her mom, now you think about this really. Now, if you're getting a chance for half the kingdom, why would you want the head of John the Baptist? I go for half the kingdom. Forget that. Let's be real. You
She
know,
didn't know. She was a teenager and she had to, pressured by her mother and
yeah, that's kind of gross. It's like, okay, you showed that good animated picture, like the head on a platter, and they're holding it over the table. I could just imagine how the guest felt about that. I go, like, really?
uh
But at the same time, it says in the text, and she brought the head to her mother. I'm like, that's just gross.
Hey,
mhm.
Mom, look
I
what I
mean,
found.
yeah, it
Did I
looks
tell
like here
you?
you go. So it makes you feel like really that girl probably would have went. The dancer would have went for half the kingdom, but her mom's idea was for the head of John the Baptist. Now
Yes.
Yeah.
that's interesting. That's interesting, but maybe I think that was a political move more than a realistic move
Hmm.
for half the kingdom. I
Definitely.
definitely I'd go for half of the kingdom if I was a belly dancer, but I don't have that opportunity. I don't think I ever will, David. That's maybe because I'm bald. I don't know,
Well, it tells you
but
how much they really hated John the Baptist.
well, that's true. That's true. And maybe the idea that a movement might cause another type of problem among the Jews, which would also kind of what they call be disturbing for the Pax Romanus, the Roman peace.
Yeah.
But they say
And
peace to Rome is quiet. Peace to Rome is quiet for the provinces.
and
And we
Herod,
got to imagine.
Well,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
he had, I apologize. He had, John had exposed what they were doing, and you don't ever want the king to be in a bad light. So even though he knew it was the wrong thing to do, it's still, pride kind of took over there.
Right. Now I could have helped Herod out here. I know I don't want to be the devil's advocate, but I said, Herod, you know what your problem is? You should be a Mormon. I'm from Ohio, that's no problem, in Ohio. We got the little communities. But anyway, if you're from Ohio, you'll get it. But okay.
we
So
had um, we had Herod actually trying to play both sides of the fence, and that he wanted to please the Jews and he also wanted to please the Romans.
right.
And so Josephus gives us a lot of information in his writings on this. And so anybody wants, a little more information and and view into the life of Herod Antipas, you can check out Josephus' writings. I have the reference. There's one of them right here.
And go ahead. I'm sorry, I'm interrupting.
No, it's just
Okay.
chapter 18, sections 27 to 36. Talks about Livias and the cities that he's rebuilding and so forth. Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing to show here is Colorado right here in the green. This is a hot spring. It's a modern day spa. It's quite beautiful, but it's still being used right here on the Zerka, right on the river right here. So it's a spot that Herod also visited, we know from Josephus's writings, because he liked.
Now this wouldn't just be. I'm sorry. This wouldn't just be Herod Antipas. This is also this could also be Herod the Great that would go to this location as a resort.
Yes.
So if I'm a tourist and I visit Jordan, I could look at the sites of Jordan and visit them, such as Petra and Tel El Hammam and Machaerus. But I also could go to this hot spa, this Hamat, and it's still active as a resort, and go there and have a what?
Yep, they have a hotel there, and there's a place where you can actually bathe in the hot springs. It's actually quite beautiful.
Is that the Maine?
Pardon?
I think it's what it's called, the hot springs there.
The Mayan.
Okay.
Mayan, yeah. And
all right.
So it's a favorite tourist spot. Of course, we have the hot springs at our site at Tel El Hammam as well, but you can't bathe in them. They got them capped and using them to irrigate their banana fields. But just to give you an idea of how close they are, and for a hot, there's a hot bath that Herod was using at Livias as well. He put a building around it, and it was originally built by Herod the Great, we believe. It was that early, and of course Herod Antipas he inherited these, and I think Machaerus was also built by Herod the Great as well. I think you would know a little more on that, on the history of Machaerus, Esther.
Yeah, there's I don't know the author. There's a book called Herod the Great Builder, and so they go through all of the sites. But he was definitely known for his building projects.
Yeah, and here right across the Dead Sea is the Herodium, and as I said, you could see it from here. It's kind of it looks like a volcano, cone shaped. We've talked about that a little bit. They found the recently or pilot's ring there.
Right.
Yeah.
At the Herodium. So you've got the Herodium, and then you have also Jerusalem, and Herod's building in this area right here, and then Herod Antipas, he inherits this after the death, and also Masada down here. Herod has a palace down there as well. So there's the triangle of his buildings right here. So it's all tied together, all integrated.
It is quite interesting, because if you got your cursor, could you use it here, David, for a second? Let's go to Jerusalem. So Jerusalem, you got the palace of Herod, but also, and when you think about the palace of Herod on the west side, away from the temple, it did have the three towers, wasn't it? Like Mariamne, Hippicus, and Phaziel, and you can go visit that location today. Yeah. These are not just palaces; these are like fortresses at the same time. So if there's a rebellion in Jerusalem, you could move south to the Herodian. There it is. Once again, fabulous. From a distance, it looks like a volcano. Yeah. And
there's a water system that feeds from the Herodium also up into Jerusalem. There's a water system here.
That's amazing. Yeah. And what about the swimming pool with an island in the middle of it? These guys are living.
Yeah. And Masada down here. The red squares are the fortresses. I have them marked here as fortresses. So those are Herod's fortresses. And there's three of them here, like in a triangle. And then
the fortresses, go ahead.
Then we have Herod Antipas trying to keep up with his dad up here in Sepphoris. He wants to rebuild Sepphoris, and Josephus tells us about that being rebuilt. And there's been some archaeological excavations being done up here as well. But while this is being constructed, he's living down here, the high life in the south. Now, in the wintertime, it's warmer down here. So this is generally, instead of living up here in Philadelphia, which is modern day Amman, or even being up in the Galilee region, he wants to be down here where it's nice and warm. So he's hanging out down here at his three favorite spots, Colero, Livias, and Machaerus. And also when he goes over to the other side, Herodium and Masada.
Now, George, you mentioned something really interesting that piqued my interest just now. You mentioned the three towers. Well, at the recent excavations of Machaerus, they are theorizing, the Hungarian archaeological team, they're theorizing that there was 4 towers, but they've only located 3.
No way.
That's an interesting parallel.
That is. But I think most people, they think Herod the Great. I believe, we don't hear about this in church, but Herod really wasn't a Jew by birth. He was Idumean. And it looks like the stronghold, like if there's trouble and a rebellion in Jerusalem, because the man could be despised, because he's really not a Jew. He's king of the Jews because the Romans made him king of the Jews. But if there's problems, he could start heading south, and from Jerusalem go to the Herodian. From the Herodian, he could probably make it to the Masada. And now he's back down in Idumea.
And that's down here in the south at Petra, basically the modern site of Petra, the Nabatean site. So that's what down here in the south.
That's why
and then go ahead. I'm sorry.
Diplomatically married the Nabatean princess.
Right. So yeah, there's
his life, is all down here in the south.
That's what I'm getting at. I think that area, around Jerusalem, down in the south, the stronghold of Machaerus, and also where you're at in Livias. These are his strongholds. And this is where they probably captured John and then took him down and imprisoned him. But for Jesus is up in Galilee. Now he's got an advantage because it's not quite, he's got the opportunity to go over to the territory of Philip to the right. And we see Jesus, it isn't explicit in the Gospels, but he is making moves. He's moving. And I think we say, well, he's moving because he's praying for people. Oh, he's moving because of the miracles. It could also be because he's avoiding Herod.
Right.
Because there's a reason for this, because he's trying to get to Jerusalem. He told his disciples that this has to come to pass. And during the Passover is where he would be imprisoned and go through what we call the passions of the Christ and the crucifixion. So there's a reason for him to avoid Herod, because, we know what he wants to do. He gave it away when he executed John.
Right.
So there's a reason when we think about the gospel and Jesus is moving back and forth, because here we got Samaria, we got the Decapolis, we got the territory of Philip, and we have to understand that these are Herod's sons, and the territories are divided amongst them. So Herod Antipas probably doesn't have the same authority as Philip. And I don't think they did. And they did have certain passions. I think Josephus kind of gives an indication that Philip was more mild of a ruler, of a tetrarch, if you will, than Antipas. So you could move between territories, and once you cross over, when that's somebody else's problem, and then he has to come back over. Jesus could move back into your territory, and then it becomes kind of like a little chase.
Yeah.
But when he finally makes it down to Jerusalem, well, then you know where he's at, because he's there for the reason. All right. And this is where I'm not going to, well, they plotted to kill Jesus. He knew that. And I thought, now I'm just going to sum this up. So people understood, like, not just the locations where we're at, but the rhyme and the reason for what's going on in this ancient culture. But this is truly, I think it's really fascinating that we can go to these locations that you both shared to the listening audience and get a glimpse of what is really going on at that time and place. And I think this was really cool, and I appreciate both your time for this. Now, I'm done. I'm done. I just wanted to share that.
I think another point that kind of fits into the story of course, Jesus is born down here in Bethlehem and then travels up north and then grows up. He's Jesus of Nazareth. Nazareth is up here in Galilee. Lives at Capernaum and Peter's house for a while. Sepphoris is being rebuilt. And so, Jesus of Nazareth is right beside Sepphoris. And some have speculated that Jesus was a carpenter. Well, the word actually means builder. That Jesus may have traveled with his father to Sepphoris and had been part of the rebuilding of the capital of Sepphoris, as working there as well. So that's kind of an interesting piece of speculation. But given the close proximity, we know Herod was rebuilding Sepphoris. He may have gotten hired to do some of the work at that site. And then, of course, he's hanging out down here in the south. But that's why Herod doesn't meet Jesus until Jesus comes to Jerusalem right here, and John the Baptist, and that's where Herod comes in contact with the two of them.
It's really interesting. It really is.
So that's a good lesson for us to know our geography, because it helps us understand the Bible and make sense of the text.
And that's exactly right. It helps to get the archaeology, the geography, and historical implements in place. And I think everybody did a really good job today, and I appreciate both your time in doing this. It took a while to get everybody together, but I appreciate it. It's well worth it, because this is a very unique opportunity to share this with the audience, and I really appreciate it. So
really great to be with you too, Esther. We'll say our formal goodbyes after we stop the podcast, but
sure.
Great to see you again.
Sure.
Yeah, great to be here. Great to have this good discussion with both of you. It's been definitely a pleasure.
Well, thank you for both your time. Everybody, once again, I thank the listening audience and the subscribers. We're up to around 85,000 at the moment. So thanks for everything you're doing and subscribing. I appreciate it. And Dr. Graves and Esther, I really appreciate your time and joining us in this event. We really plotted for a while to get this done. So I'm really grateful that it did. All righty. I'm going to sign off now. Once again, everybody have a great day.